list a couple of things, because in some of those sections it lists a whole lot of things that we didn't cover, and I don't want us to have to worry with that. And in fact, we're not going to do delete and reverse, so we won't worry about those, but we'll come to that in the questions at the end of the chapters. Okay, and I try to be very specific as to which things we'll do, no others, out of those chapters. So let's look at we're at chapter 6 at the review questions, multiple choice, page 337. Okay. All right. A file that data is written to is known as an output file. Number 2, a file that data is read from is known as an input file. Before a file can be used by a program, it must be opened, 3D. When a program is finished, it should be closed, 4C. The contents of this type of file can be viewed in an editor. That's a text file, 5A. The type of file this type of file contains data that's not been converted to text. That's a binary file, a 6B binary file. Now, we haven't worked with binary files, but you just need to know what one is. Okay, it's just not a text file. Number 7, when working with this type of file, you access its data from the beginning of the file to the end, sequential, 7D. And those are the only files that we have worked with, are text sequential files. Number 8, when working with this type of file, you can jump directly to any piece of data in the file. That is direct access, 8C. I want you to know what direct access is, but we did not work with any, and you won't see any problems like that. You don't have to do 9, you don't have to do 10, you don't have to do 11. 12, this is a single piece of data within a record. That's a field, a field. 13, when an exception is generated, it is said to have been raised, 13B. This section of code gradually responds to exceptions. C, exception handler. You write this statement to respond to exceptions. Try except. B, 15B. If we look at the true false, when working with sequential access files, you can jump directly to any piece of data. That's wrong. 1 is false. Number 2, when you open a file that already exists on the disk using the W mode, the contents of the existing file will be erased. That's true. Okay. 2 is true. 3, the process of opening a file is only necessary with input files. Output files are automatically opened. Well, that's false. We've been opening both kinds. 3, false. 4, when an input file is opened, it's no, you don't have to do 4. You don't have to do 5. Number 6, if you do not handle an exception, it is ignored by the Python interpreter and the program executes. Well, that's false. Any exception raised stops the program, and we get all those red lines fussing at us on the interpreter. 6 is false. 7, you can have more than one except clause in a try except statement, and that's true. You can accept different exceptions. 8, the else suite in a try statement executes only if a statement in the try suite raises an exception. That's false. The else executes when there are no exceptions. 9, the finally suite executes only if no exceptions are raised. That's false. The finally executes all the time, whether there are exceptions or no exceptions. It will execute. Okay. No short answer, nothing there. Okay. So those are the multiple choice and true false from number 6. Oh, yeah. Pardon? Okay. All right, so let's go to 7. Well, let's see what we have here. Okay, number 1. This term refers to an individual item in a list. That's element 1A. This is a number that identifies an item in a list. That's index 2B. 3. This is the first index. That's 0, C. 4. This is the last index. That's D, the size of the list minus 1. Number 5. This will happen if you try to use an index that is out of range. B, you'll get an index error. 6. This function returns the length of a list. C, len. Number 7. When the star operator's left operand is a list and its right operand is an integer, the operator becomes 7B, the repetition operator. 8. This list method adds an item to the end of an existing list. Append, 8D. 9. You don't have to do 9. Assume the following statement appears in a program. Which of the following would add the string Labrador to the list? C. You want to append Labrador. We're not going to do 11.
Professor?
Yeah.
Is this the one of the quizzes where we'll have more of the outputs, like what's going to be the result compared to previous ones?
Well, I'm going to talk about that.
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem. No problem. Okay. If you call the index method, okay. Oh, no, we're not going to do 11. This built-in function returns the highest value, max. That's easy. Okay. This file object method returns a file containing the list's contents. Read lines returns a list. 13 is D. 14, which of the, oh, we're not doing tuples. No 14. So let's look at the true false. Lists in Python are immutable. That is false. They are mutable. That means they can change. 1 false. We didn't do 2. We didn't do 3. 4. Assume list 1 references a list after the following statement executes. List 1 and list 2 will reference 2 identical lists in memory. That's false. Okay. Once you put 2 lists together, it's 1 list, okay? Or not put them together. When you say they're going to look at the same list, it's just 1 list in memory. A file object's write lines method automatically puts a \n. No, it doesn't. 5 false. You can use the plus operator to concatenate 2 lists. Yes, true. 6, true. A list can be an element in another list. That's true. That's 2D lists. We've done some of those. And you don't have to do 8. So in chapter 7, we're not doing tuples at all. So you don't have to worry about any of those. So let's look at some of the short answer then. So here they have a list. How many elements does this list have? Well, it's got 5, right? What is the index of the first element in the list? 0. What's the index of the last element? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or length minus 1. All right, if I look at this one, what's the value stored in numbers sub 2? Well, 0, 1, 2, so that's 3. What's stored in numbers 0? That's the first slot, that's 1. And what's stored in minus 1? That's the last slot, 3. Remember, minus 1 starts from the back end and just counts, okay, backwards. What will the following code display? So I have a list of 2, 4, 6, 8, and I want the values 1:3. So I'll start at 1. So that's 0, 1. So it starts at 4. And it goes up to 3, but not including 3. 1, 2. It can't include 8, so it's 4 and 6. It's a list of 4, 6. What does this one display? This one starts at 5, and if there's nothing on the other side of the colon, it goes to the end of the list. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the end. That's 6 and 7. So that's a list of 6, 7. And this one, what does this one do? It's counting backwards. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's nothing here, so it goes to the end. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8. That's a list of 5, 6, 7, 8. And what does this display? It's a repetition operator, so I'll have one list of 5 2s. 2, 2, 2, so forth. Okay? So make sure that you go over things like this and can count those. You'll be able to use scratch paper, but you can count those slots and tell me what's in them, okay, if I slice it. All right, so let's go to 7. Oh, sorry, 8. Yeah, 8. We go to 8. And by now you've probably noticed that 8 is very similar to 7 because they use all the same types of things. So the first index in a string is 0. The last index in a string is the size of the string minus 1. If you have an index error, if you have an error with an index, it's called an index error exception. 3b. What function returns the length of a string? len. You don't have to worry about number 5. You don't have to worry about number 6. You don't have to worry about number 7. Well, n, you can do an n because it works on lists and strings as well. You don't have to worry about number 8. You don't have to worry about number 9. You don't have to worry about number 10. Now, having said that, you do need to know what rstrip does to a line from a file. Takes off that \n, and you do have to know how to split. So you do need to know the split method. True, false. Once a string is created, it cannot be changed. That is true. Now remember this. Lists are mutable, they can change. Strings are immutable, they cannot change. Okay? You can use the for loop to iterate over individual characters. True. You don't have to do 3. 4. The repetition operator works with strings as well as lists. True. 5. When you call a string split method, the method divides a string into 2 substrings. False. Okay? It divides it into whatever you're splitting on, how many of those there are. Okay? All right, let's look at these. What does the following code display? All he is doing is concatenating, which means just adding strings together. So he's adding yes, no, yes. It'll be one long string, yes, no, no spaces, no nothing. What does the following code display? Well, here, let me come over here so we can at least see it written out. Why must everything, for some reason, it won't let me show all of those at once. All right, so we're looking at the short answer, and the first one is yes, no, yes. That's what that's going to look like when it puts all of that together. All right. The second one says what happens if you have A, B, C, A, B, oops, A, B, C, A, B, C. 3 ABCs put together. Okay. The next one says,
Ma'am?
yeah.
If if you take that untitled window and drag it all the way to the left side of your screen, it should resize it, like with the take your mouse cursor all the way to the left end of the screen.
Well, but I can resize it, right?
Right, but like if you take the window itself and with the cursor go all the way to the very extreme far edge of the screen, it'll resize it to take the left half, and then it'll ask you what you want on the right side. So cursor all the way, keep going, keep going, keep going. Let go.
I believe you. It's just.
There you go. And now you can
okay,
click your book.
Cool. Okay, there we go. Excellent.
Yeah, and it automatically resizes. So there you go.
Okay. Interesting. Well, thank you. All right, that solves that. Okay, but that's not what I wanted. I wanted the book on there.
The book was one of the options when it asked you what you wanted on the other side.
Lucky me. And now you can't change it back, huh?
Just grab your untitled window again and re-drag it to that left side.
Okay. Oh man, this is not fun at all. Oh, where was I? There you go. So you have to do that every time you want to change whatever you're looking at?
I mean, it's a way of going about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, there you go. Now you can do the vital source. There you go. Oh, and now vital source is doing weird formatting. All right, never mind. Thwarted by vital source, sorry.
Oh, well, that's okay. It happens. Okay. Phooey. Well, anyway. All right. So if I'm looking at the next one, okay, it says string equals ABCD. They want us to print right. All right. So I've got to count 0, 1, 2. So it starts with C, and it's going to go up to 5, 2, 3, 4. So I should get C, D, E. Now you're going to want to know how to do this on the quiz, I can tell you, because I'm going to do something like this and let you select the correct answer. Now the next one is and they want right. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 5. Okay. Up to 6, not including 6. So it's 5, 6. I mean 4, 5. 5 and 6 is what the answer is. Okay. All right. Okay. Now, when doing this, you'll have some scratch paper, so I would just lay it out. Typically, I would just write the list, and I'd put the index right above each number, so I'd know automatically what the indices are, okay, in case I couldn't think on the fly. All right. You don't have to do number 5. We're not doing upper, lowercase stuff. Okay. All right, let me come back to the book. Okay. Now, let's go over to, that's all of them. Yeah, that includes 6, 7, and 8. Okay. All right. So you want to make sure that you do look at some of the little short answer ones because you'll see samples like that. Well, I also wanted to show on 6. If you look at something like 9 and 10, he's asking you what's going to be displayed. So I could see something like this. Okay, let's copy. Oh gosh. There. Okay, there we go. All right, so if you look at something like this, and this isn't a complete program, obviously, okay? asking, do you know how this works? So what kind of error is this going to be? Well, he's converting a string to a number, which you can't, unless the string does not have this, okay, you can do that one, but if it has actual letters in it, you can't convert those to numbers. So this is going to raise a value error. So the first thing it's going to do is it's come down here and print this code caused by a value error, and then it'll print the end. Right? Because the end isn't even part of the try except. So it'll print this code caused a value error and the end. All right. What if this said finally? Finally always does its thing. So it would still say this code caused a value error, the end. Okay. If it was this number, what would it say? Well, it can convert a 1, 2, 3 string, right? It would just say the end, because finally is always executed. So you just want to make sure that you take something like this and you try it in different ways so that when I ask you something like this, you can pick the correct answer of what's going to be printed. Okay, so you'll want to look at those at the end of that. There you go. You want to look at these two and play around a little with them so that you know how they work. Okay, so let's go look at the worksheet. Okay, so the first one on the worksheet, write function open file that accepts a file name and opens the file. It's a file name and opens the file. Now, I didn't say whether it was an in file or an out file. I will on the test. I'll say which one opens an out file or an in file or something like that. But what you need to remember is the name of the file goes here. And then you have to know if it's read or write, and I'd have to tell you that as well. Remember, R is read, W is write. And that's all I asked you to do is just open the file. Okay. If I wanted to have an exception on it, in case there's something wrong with the file, whatever you're trying to say, right? Easy enough. Okay. What are the two types of files and what are the two types of file access? We just had those in the multiple choice questions. The two types of files are text file and binary. We're only worried with text files. You just need to know what binary is, and it's the second type of file. The two types of access are direct and sequential, and we're only doing sequential. Okay. How do you read, write text files? So that's easy enough. Read, write. What various functions will read files? Well, we've done several. We've done read. Now, what does that read? That reads everything in is a long string, right? The whole file is a string. We've done read lines, and that reads everything in as a list of lines. Then we've done read line. That's just one line at a time. Okay. And then we had the really easy one for line in file. You just need to know the difference. So for example, if I said in the code or in the question, which of these code will open a file and read it as a list of lines, you want to make sure that I'm using read lines and not read or not read line. So read very carefully what I'm asking you to do and see which one does that. Okay. See. Why do you need to close a file? Well, first off, you've got to release resources. And second off, if you don't close a file that's written to, it won't write everything to the file. So it won't be a complete file. What are the characteristics of a list? We know it's mutable, which means it can change. We know it's a sequence. We know it has indices. We know it can be any type of data. Okay. So we know several things, and we know also that it is in brackets. So just make sure you understand what all these mean. Mutable, it can change. Sequence means it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 to the length of the string. How to use the indices, and any type of data, as we said before. Write a list of numbers to a file. All right. Now, I can't write numbers to a file, so when I do this, I've got to convert them, right? If I want them one per line, then I'll add the backslash in. And always, always close the file. So if I ask you to do something like this, outside of remembering you got to convert it to a string, don't forget to look and make sure I've closed the file as well. Read a file is a list of lines. Whatever name it is, and I'll give you the name, or you'll be looking at the code, so you'll be able to tell. There you go. You read it as a list of lines. Okay. Number 9, write a program that gets the name of a student from the user, calls read student file. Okay, so the file looks like maybe this. Where we have a student and the type, which is either domestic, US or international, and the number of credit hours they're taken. So we want to read that file and calculate their tuition, and international students get a discount. So if I want a function, is that what it says? Read student file. Accepts the name. Okay. I want to open the file. I said give a name for the file. I didn't give a name for the file, so it's fine. Okay. Okay, now this is one of those where we have to read the separate lines so that we can get the information that we need. So if you'll remember that, the first thing we do is we read the name. We'll call it the student name. Because that's where the student name is. While S name not equal to a blank. Right. Now I have to come in, I have to read the other two pieces of data. We'll call it S type for student type. And hours. Okay. Now, I've got to calculate tuition. So I'm going to just put a variable to store that in. I'll set it up. Okay. But I only want to calculate the tuition for the correct name of the student that I passed in. So if S name equals name. Now remember, okay, that the one from the file has a backslash in on it, right? So we need to strip that backslash in off so it'll equal the name I passed in. And now if it's the same student, then I can calculate tuition. Now that should be hours times $50. But hours isn't a number yet, so I've got to turn that into a number, and I've got to strip it of the \n. Now I have to find out if he's international. If S-type equals, and I can do this a couple of ways, but right now when I read in S-type it had a \n, so I'm just going to say if it has a \n on it also, then I know that I've got to give him a discount. The tuition is then 5%, he gets a 5% discount. And then I read the rest of the file. Okay, so let's look at this. I read the name. As long as there's something there, it's not blank, the file's not empty. I then read the type and the hours. So now I've got all these in. I strip the name I read in, and if it's equal to the name I'm looking for, I know to calculate his tuition and see if he's an international student. Don't forget that when I calculate the tuition, that I have to strip off the \n from hours, and I have to convert it to an integer. Now, if I had come up here and I had said strip right here, I wouldn't have had to do the \n here. Either one would have been fine. And then I said return list with his name and tuition. Now, if I want to run that or use that, then I have to have a name. I can call read student file with some name, but it returns something. So I've got to come in here and I've got to store that. I'll just call it answer. And then if I want to print their name and their tuition, I print them out separately. The name is in slot 0. The tuition is in slot 1. This is basically what you did on homework, or the third problem of the homework, this type of thing. So in this type of thing, you just want to make sure that I'm stripping where I need to strip. I'm accounting for the \n, either stripping it off or keeping it in there, whichever way. All right. And I'm converting numbers, that type of thing. Okay. Okay, what's the next one? Be able to iterate over a list with a for loop using the index and without the index. All right. So if we have that list of numbers again. All right, there's the for loop. If I want to use an index, you have to do the range on the length of the list. Make sure that you index the list. Okay? There's 2 ways to do it. How do you add something to a list? And now remember, if you're appending another list, then you would have to do, you know, append that, oops, append that list to that, and then you'll get, all right. Let me back that up. I want to append one thing to the list. I'm going to append, okay? If I want to append the list, yeah. I'm appending another list to that, yes, okay. Yeah. How do you determine if a specific element is in a list? If to in list. And we have not in as well, depending on what you're asking. What's the index of the first element? 0. The index of the last element, length minus 1. And how do I find out how many elements are in the list? Length, right? Which we did here. So you should be familiar with all of those. What is slicing a list? Basically taking a piece out of it. Okay, a sub-list, if you will. All right. All right, here we have some. What do I do if I want to print my list? Colon 2. Let me print all of these in here, and then we'll look at them. Okay. And in fact, let me comment some of this stuff out. Okay. So if there's not anything before the colon, then it means it starts at the front of it. And I go to 2. All right. Up to 2. So I should get 1 and 2. And we're going to run it in just a minute. Minus 2 starts at the back end, 1, 2. So I should get, and it starts at the beginning of that. So what? 2 to minus 2? All right, let's see. Let's see. There you go. 1 and 2 we knew. This one goes from the beginning to minus 2. So minus 2 is 4, so it only picks up the first 3. And this goes 3 to 5. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay. 4. Okay. And 5. And then my list. Now this one, all right, starts at minus 2, which is 4, and says go to minus 3, which is 3. It's trying to go backwards. It can't do that. Therefore, you get a blank list. Remember that if you try to take a slice of something that's not possible, you just basically get a blank list. Okay? You want to make sure you know how those work. Okay? Let's see. Open file takes the file name and tries to open the file. Use exception handling for file errors. Actually, I think we did that up above. And it takes the file name. All right, we're going to try. We're going to open in file. You read or write, but read is fine. There you go. Okay. Basically, just put everything in try and then make sure you have your except. You can have other exceptions if you wanted. Okay. What can we do? I could have an except, right? At the end, print, you know, something happened. Could do that. What's the difference? Well, if IO error happens, it will run this. If any other error happens, it will run this, right? Can I do this? Let me see. Do that? No. Why? Because the catch-all must always be at the end. You go from specific to general. This is general. That means anything that could go wrong. You want to do the specific exception first, and then that one, the catch-all. So just remember, okay, the order that they need to be in. Okay, so 17, we've actually done some of this. What's an exception? That's when something goes wrong in your code. An exception handler is this thing right here. We're trying to handle bad things that happen to programs. We've gone over the tricept else is finally, okay? Else works when there's no errors. Finally always works. What are value error, index error, and IO error? IO error are files. Value error is anything you change, you're trying to convert to numbers, okay? And index is when you're trying to use one of these things. And we're going to see that in just a minute. How do you use it? We just wrote it. That's how you use it. Okay. Oh, to catch all exceptions, this catches all exceptions. How do you print the default error message? Could have done what? Except exception as ERR and print ERR. Or a catch-all. And this will tell you what the error message is, whatever else happens besides IO error. How do you iterate through a string? There you go. Just like we did the lists. Write a function that breaks up the string goodbye, see you tomorrow, and prints each word on a separate line. Okay, so I want to break up this string. Here we're going to break it up because we have words. Obviously, each word is on a separate line. So we know how to do that. We're going to split it on a blank because that's what separates each word. All right. And then for word in line, print word. Remember when I do this with a split always puts it into a list. And I just want to traverse the list one word at a time and print each word on a separate line. Remember, print by itself will print everything on a separate line. Print the length of the above string. Assume S equals goodbye. And we want to know what these are. Let me write these in real quick. Okay. All right, let me comment these out for a minute. All right, so if I want 1 through 4, so there's 0. So 1, 2, 3, OOD should be OOD. We'll run it in just a minute. S:5, that starts at the beginning and goes to that 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That should be good B. Let's see if that's what we get. Yep, OOD and good B. All right. Now let's look at this one and let's run it and see what we get. Well, we get an error message. Why? It says a typo. Now, don't worry about the error itself, and it really doesn't tell you much about this. What it's complaining about is, remember, strings can't change. You cannot change a string. So I'm going in and I'm trying to put an X in the place of this 0 right here. But I can't do that because strings are immutable. Let's remember that. That's going to come up at some point. Not assign something to a string. Okay? Now let's look at this one. Now you can tell what the problem is going to be here, right? Index error. There is no slot 9. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It only goes up to 6. Okay, so that was an index error. So you're going to want to make sure that when you read these to select the correct answer that they're within the index range and that I'm not trying to change the string. So I guess the real question is, what if I did S equals S plus S? I added, so I should have what, goodbye, goodbye? Oh, goodbye. Oh, good grief. There. So I should have goodbye, goodbye, and I will, all right? The question is, what's in memory, right? And it looks like I changed S, right? And I just said you can't change a string. But I really didn't. What Python does is S used to say goodbye, and that's out in memory somewhere. But the minute I add something to it, and now it says something new, okay, it has a new string in memory. It has goodbye, goodbye. And the original goodbye is out there somewhere in memory. But it didn't change the original goodbye. It just created a new one, okay? So strings are not changeable. You can't do that. Even though it looks like you're doing it. It's not what it's doing behind the scenes in the memory, okay? Print hello 5 times from the repetition operator. Print hello 5 times. Easy enough. Now these will all run together, right? Hello, 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 hello. No spaces, no nothing. They'll be on one line. So the way I see this playing out is there's 3 chapters, so you're probably going to have about, what, 4 or 5 questions from the back of the chapters from each of those. So that's about, what, 13 to 15 questions from the back of the chapters. And then you'll have 5 or 6 or so that have code. Now, it could be things like that one that I showed you from the book. What does this do? Let's go back to that. What does this do? What will be printed out? It could be like we were doing on the worksheet. Where I said, write numbers to a file or write something to a file. Look at what we did in the homework. We wrote a 2D list to a file. So I could ask you which code will write a 2D list to a file. I could have you read from the file and calculate something or add up the numbers from a file. Now these things, obviously I'm going to have you do some of these. These are not what I call intensive coding problems. There's just, you know, what's the answer when I do these slicing. So in answer to the original question, yes, you will have some coding problems along the lines that we did here and on the homework. But it looks like there's probably only going to be about 6 or so. 5 to 6 of them. This particular quiz covers a little more than all the others, but there are things in those chapters we aren't covering at all. Now, I have placed up the videos for chapter 9, and they're not on this quiz, obviously, but that's for next week. But I've placed them up there, and I'll be placing homework 4 up there today or tomorrow. Are there any questions about the quiz? Okay, let's talk about something else. I'm unclear if doing videos on Tuesdays and talking about them on Thursdays is helpful to anybody. And the reason I say that is because when it comes to the homeworks, people aren't showing up to labs and they're not coming by office hours. Some are, but not many compared to the number in the class. And then at the last minute, people are asking how to do the homework. So I'm not sure if the videos aren't helping. You need the lectures. So I need to have your input on what y'all are thinking about that. Does anybody have any input? Nobody has input. Okay.
I prefer the videos because then I can watch them at my own pace. So then I can get ahead.
Oh, okay. Okay. And if you don't want to talk online in front of everybody, that's fine. You can send me email. All right. It's hard to tell without being able to look at your faces and see what you're thinking, so to speak, if the videos help, if they don't help, and if you need the lectures more. The other thing that kind of bothers me is that people aren't showing up to labs and office hours and asking for help. So I'm a little, hesitant about that as well. Is there any reasons?
I just.
Pardon?
Oh, all I was saying was, I just can't get to the lab since I work on those days of the thing. So like I have Tuesday and Thursdays off for school, but for like Monday and Wednesdays, I just can't make the labs because I'm working.
Oh, okay. But you could come to office hours, right?
Yes.
Okay, just checking. All right. Because we tried to do something every day just in case everybody couldn't do everything all on one day or anything like that. Okay. I'm just concerned that I don't see, since I can't see you physically and I don't hear much from you, I'm unclear if things are going good, bad, indifferent, or what. Okay. And as I said, if you don't want to talk in person, online, that's fine. You can email me. And if you have trouble with the hours in some way, then check in with me and email me. I helped people last night till like 10 o'clock or so on homeworks and things. So you can always email me for help. And you can send your code and I'll look at it and give you some guidance and everything. But just send code as a text file. Don't send it as a picture. I can't do anything with a picture of code. I need to be able to run it. Okay. Anything else come to mind? Do you want to continue getting just the videos and meeting on Thursdays, or do you want to do all lectures on Tuesdays and Thursdays? And you can think about it. You don't have to give me an answer right this minute and everything. Would there be anything else that would be helpful? Because I know online courses really aren't, I don't think, conducive to learning all this stuff. Anything from your perspective? Boy, y'all are quiet. Okay.
Would it be
Something that I
possible?
thought might help me personally was like if I could like see more practice problems that you work out, like when we did like today and when we did it on the workbenches, those help a lot. So if you could do like practice videos for like Tuesday over workbenches, then I think that would help.
Okay. All right. I will look into that. So practice for workbenches. Okay. And what was the other person going to say?
Oh, I was just gonna say is like after, let's say the homework is turned in and graded, if we could be able to kind of see like how, if we say, for example, got that particular problem on a homework incorrect, how it's actually supposed to look like in code.
Oh,
Just
okay.
kind of review so I can kind of be able to fix any mistakes that you did.
Okay. All right. I can see that. No, all the questions will not be opened at the same time on the quiz. The quizzes are always one question at a time. I'm sorry. That's kind of our standard, all right, for the department. Anything else? Well, those are good ideas, so I think we can consider those. Okay. If these will work out better, then we'll continue having those types of things on Tuesdays and then meeting on Thursdays. We'll try this a little longer and see how it goes. Okay. Okay, more practice questions in general. Okay, I can do that too. All right. Yeah. I'm writing all this down. Give me a minute. Okay. Okay, so the quiz is on Tuesday, then we'll meet back on Thursday, and we're going to start, well, you would have had the videos for Chapter 9. So on Chapter 9, we'll do some samples, and we'll try to do the workbench stuff and some other things as well. Okay. If you have other things that you want to recommend or try, then send me an email if you feel more comfortable that way. And as I said, I'm going to post the homework today or tomorrow. So hopefully after the quiz next week, you can sort of begin to get into that and then go to the labs or come to office hours or whatever. Okay. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to say about what would be better? Okay. Well, I'm going to hang here just a few minutes in case anybody comes up with questions, but the lecture part is done on the review.